And so, this is where I review the MCU. All of it. Start to finish. I post the reviews whenever the thing comes out, and then I put it into the MCU playlist and place it in chronological timeline order. Why? Because it's fun. And before you ask, no, I don't include quote-unquote non-canonical Marvel movies in the playlist because, whatever, even though the multiverse now means everything is canon, but who cares? Let me be a nerd. Anyway, off we go. Today, I'm reviewing Moon Knight. It's either a 6-part miniseries or the first season of a Disney Plus show. The jury is still out on that, I guess, but anyway, it's an adaptation of a cult comic book, the hero of which started life as a side character in Werewolf by Night, which was a thing in the 1970s. This particular story seems to be based on a 1990s run of the comic, and it stars Oscar Isaac as the title character, along with May Calamawy. Yes, that's not me saying calamari as if I were Jonathan Ross, that's actually her name. May Calamawy as another Marvel character who isn't revealed until the end, so I won't spoil. Ethan Hawke also stars as the villainous Arthur Harrow, and the series features the voice of F. Murray Abraham as the god Khonshu. Jeremy Slater served as showrunner, and the episodes were directed by Mohamed Diab and the directing team of Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Now, let's take a look.
Voice in your head. Shut up! There's chaos in you. Embrace the chaos.
There's a lot going on in this show. Most of it is pretty interesting, if not always particularly entertaining, but more on that in a second. Things certainly get off to a pretty strong start. The first episode is very intriguing and draws you into this story of a man who seems to be a meek museum gift shop clerk in London, but there's clearly something else going on. Oscar Isaac is very good in the role, and if his British accent seems to come from the Dick Van Dyke School of Performing Arts, that's eventually perfectly justified by the story itself. And in the event that you want to sit through all 6 episodes of this thing, and maybe that is actually a good thing to do, more on that also in a second. My point is, in the event you are watching this video without having seen the series yourself, I will not be discussing the intricacies of the plot. Suffice to say, it involves a bit of globetrotting, chasing around a MacGuffin, some kind of treasured scarab pendant, and trying to stay one step ahead of a villainous Ethan Hawke, who is a culturally appropriating American asshole that is trying to awaken an Egyptian god for the purposes of world subjugation, or enlightenment, or liberation, or whatever. Meanwhile, the Moon Knight is the avatar of the god Khonshu, but there are some wrinkles to how and what exactly that entails, and it's all kind of a big mess, and that's that. I hope none of what I said constitutes a spoiler, and I don't think it does. And I also am not sure if I've summarized the particulars of this plot entirely accurately, because I'm not sure I myself understand what I spent the last 6 weeks of my life watching. Suffice to say, maybe this is not for me. Don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of stuff I did like. I think Oscar Isaac does a great job, as I said, with a complicated, multi-layered performance. And I also think Ethan Hawke is terrific, a very intriguing villain who is basically the kind of role Jared Leto would have wanted to play in a movie like this, except done right. It seems the whole series was actually shot in London and in Egypt and or Jordan, and all that gives it a very cool look. They're trying to put a cerebral spin on an Indiana Jones type of adventure, and I guess there are moments where that comes off. But the fact is, after a strong and intriguing start, the show gets kind of dense and repetitive and meandering and yes, kind of boring. The story, all the different character interactions and relationships and all the shit that's going on above and on and beneath the surface, it becomes hard to follow, and I think part of that might be because although this was broken up into 6 parts to function as a mini-series and then delivered week to week over a month and a half, maybe this works better if you sit down and watch it straight through or over a couple of days. My point is, it's so loopy that you forget the details, and the recaps don't really help, so waiting a week between segments, it's kind of detrimental to the narrative experience of this very much not straightforward show. That could be one of the problems, or maybe it just plain isn't very compelling. I don't know. I could be a dick and say I knew nothing about this particular comic book property, and so there was nothing to hold my interest, but I've already seen MCU versions of comic book properties I didn't know shit about, and they worked just fine. I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, but I'm also talking about Shang-Chi, I'm also talking about The Eternals. All of that was better, or at least more engaging, than this. So yeah, I didn't really like this. But I know it has its fans, and I know if you're among them, you probably think I'm a dumb asshole or something, and that's fine. All I can do is describe my experience, and I honestly did not have a very good experience. A lot of stuff happened, and there were some intriguing visuals on display, and yes, the thing has good performances because these are some very good actors. And it's nice to know that good actors will still give 100% of themselves over to something they believe in, even if that something is ultimately a bunch of nonsense. Good work gives a project like this credibility, so if you're one of the faithful and you liked this, good for you. One thing though, because as I said a minute ago, I am not a fan of this character. In fact, I knew nothing about this character, but I have to think that if I were a fan of this character, I might have been a little disappointed by this particular representation. Don't get me wrong, Oscar Isaac is great, and the character looks great, and the show has cool effects and all that, but isn't he a superhero? Isn't he the star attraction? Why is it we barely see him? This thing is almost 6 hours long, okay, and I kid you not, I'm pretty sure we see the title hero in costume and in action for a cumulative 10 or maybe 15 minutes in all of those 6 hours. Now, maybe I'm the asshole. Maybe this too is faithful to the comics, or at least faithful to that successful run of the comics in the 1990s. Maybe in those, Moon Knight himself would only appear in 1 or 2 out of a comic's 28 pages, and if that's the case, great, this show is perfect. But I don't know, so as just a normal viewer of standard superhero genre TV, yeah, just on those terms, this thing didn't really work for me. It's very well put together, and has all the bells and whistles you could want, and again, if you're a fan, I'm happy for you. But I'm not a fan. And now, I don't really care to be. I don't care if I never see this character again. And given the low viewership numbers, and the fact that it's so disconnected from the general MCU as to seem completely inconsequential, there's a good chance I probably won't. Hey, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give me a like, and subscribe to my channel, and share the video. There's going to be some cool stuff coming to the channel, so you're going to want to keep track of it, and I hope you like all that stuff too. See ya.